Ever notice how your kids suddenly start treating you like you're the one who needs a permission slip to leave the house? One day you're raising them, the next they're rearranging your kitchen, questioning your driving, or, heaven help, us suggesting you might be happier in one of those active adult communities, which, let's be honest, is just a fancy way of saying they've already picked out your new apartment. It's enough to make you want to hide their favorite childhood toys in the attic out of sheer spite. But here's the thing, you're not some fragile antique collecting dust on a shelf. You've survived disco, the invention of the internet, and at least 3 generations of questionable fashion trends. You've earned the right to call the shots in your own life. So why does it feel like your adult children are suddenly the ones holding the remote control? If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. A neighbor of mine, Helen, sharp as a tack at 72, told me her daughter tried to veto her solo trip to visit grandkids in Denver, insisting she book a senior-friendly tour group instead. Helen's response? She booked the flight, rented a convertible, and sent a selfie from the driver's seat with the caption, "Next time, worry about your own GPS." Now, before you start plotting your own rebellious road trip, let's talk about why this happens and how to reclaim your autonomy without starting World War III at Sunday dinner. The truth is, your kids probably mean well, even if their delivery sounds like they're narrating a safety manual for toddlers. They worry. They forget you've been adulting since before they memorized the alphabet. And sometimes they confuse, helping with taking over. But here's the good news. Setting boundaries doesn't require drama, guilt trips, or turning into the grumpy parent from a 1980s sitcom. In fact, the best strategies are graceful, firm, and sprinkled with just enough humor to remind everyone that you're still the one who taught them how to tie their shoes. Over the next few minutes, we'll walk through 6 tactics that'll help you reset expectations, from the art of the thanks but no thanks deflection to the magic of letting them think they're in charge while you quietly do exactly what you please. Because the golden years shouldn't come with an instruction manual unless you're the one writing it. You know that moment when your son looks at you like you've just announced you're joining the circus because you dared to sign up for an online dating profile? Or when your daughter gasps like you're defusing a bomb just because you're climbing a ladder to clean the gutters? It's enough to make you want to dig out their old report cards and remind them who's actually the responsible one here. But here's the first secret to setting boundaries without turning family dinners into a negotiation summit. Stop explaining yourself. That's right, no justifications, no lengthy defenses, no catering to their "but why," as if you're a teenager asking to borrow the car. A friend of mine, Robert, told me his son kept interrogating him about his weekly poker game, insisting it was risky to carry cash. Robert's genius response? "Because I enjoy it. Full stop. No drama, no debate. Just a calm, unshakable statement that left no room for argument. And that's the key. Every time you over-explain, you hand them an invitation to fix your decisions. Instead, try the broken record technique. Polite, repetitive, and utterly immovable. I've got it handled. I appreciate your concern, but I'm comfortable with my choice. This works for me. Say it with a smile. Then change the subject to their kids' soccer practice or that new bakery they love. Anything to shift the spotlight off your so-called reckless independence. Now let's talk about tactic number 2, the strategic redirect. This one's perfect for those helpful suggestions that feel more like thinly veiled takeovers. Say your daughter keeps gifting you meal delivery subscriptions after you mentioned eating leftovers one night. Instead of bristling, or worse, caving, pivot with gratitude, then gently reinforce your autonomy. How thoughtful. I actually love cooking, but I'll save these for busy nights. Speaking of which, how's your meal prep going? Boom. You've acknowledged their gesture, stood your ground, and flipped the script. Another neighbor, Evelyn, used this when her son insisted on hiring a professional organizer for her cluttered basement, which between us was just a few boxes of holiday decorations. She said, What a sweet offer, but I've got a system. Those boxes are my grandkids' craft supplies when they visit. Tell me, how's little Mia's art project coming along? Suddenly, he's bragging about his kid's finger painting instead of critiquing her storage solutions. See how that works? It's like emotional jujitsu, using their momentum to keep the peace while protecting your territory. The trick is to stay light, appreciative, and just stubborn enough to remind them you're still the one who taught them how to tie their shoes. Now, let's tackle the elephant in the room, or rather, the smartphone in the room. Because nothing says, "I don't trust you," like your kids insisting you install a location tracking app just in case. Because clearly, after decades of navigating life without GPS, you're now a flight risk who might wander into traffic at any moment. Here's tactic 3, the trade-off. Instead of flat-out refusing, which can trigger their inner helicopter, parent, offer an alternative that feels like compromise but keeps you in control. Take a page from my friend Louise's playbook. When her son demanded she share her phone location 24/7, she said, "How about this? I'll text when I leave the house and when I get home, but you've got to promise not to panic if I stop at the bakery for an hour." He got peace of mind, she kept her privacy and her eclairs. This works because it addresses their real fear, your safety, without surrendering your autonomy. The same goes for those helpful tech upgrades they keep pushing. "Dad, you need a medical alert necklace. Try, I'll wear it on my morning walks, but not to book club. Martha would never let me hear the end of it." See? You're not being difficult, you're being reasonable. Now for tactic 4, let them be the expert on something else. Kids often micromanage because they miss feeling needed, so give them a job that doesn't make you want to hide their car keys. A neighbor's grandson kept lecturing her about her ancient thermostat until she asked him to research energy-efficient models for his own apartment. Suddenly, he was too busy comparing BTU ratings to bother her. Genius, right? Same goes for that daughter who's obsessed with decluttering your home. You're so good at organizing. Could you help me set up a system for the grandkids' artwork? Now she's sorting macaroni masterpieces instead of your spice rack. It's all about redirecting their helpful energy into channels that don't make you feel like a museum exhibit labeled fragile, handle with care. Speaking of handling things with care, if you're nodding along right now, why not hit that subscribe button? This channel is all about helping savvy folks like you navigate family dynamics, tech headaches, and everything else this chapter of life throws our way. Plus, you'll get first access to next week's video on how to shut down nosy questions about your will without causing a family meltdown, because nothing brings out the vultures like the mention of estate planning. Consider it your little rebellion against the just sit back and relax narrative. Hit subscribe, and let's keep reminding the world that experience comes with edge. Let's talk about the nuclear option, when thanks but no thanks just isn't cutting it anymore. You know the scenario. Your son insists on driving you to every doctor's appointment like you're a teenager with a learner's permit, or your daughter starts rearranging your medication into one of those foolproof pill organizers, as if you haven't been managing your own health since before she could spell placebo. This is where tactic 5, the controlled burn, comes in. No, we're not suggesting actual arson, though the thought might cross your mind, but rather a calculated moment where you let them see your competence in action. My friend Jerry's kids were convinced he couldn't handle online banking, so he waited until they were visiting, and accidentally left his laptop open, showing a meticulously organized spreadsheet tracking his investments, donations to charity, and even a side hustle selling vintage baseball cards. The stunned silence was sweeter than his famous apple pie. The lesson? Sometimes you've got to show, not tell. Next time they question your ability to live independently, forget to hide the evidence of your perfectly managed life. The travel itinerary for your solo trip, the thank you note from the neighbor you drove to chemo, or the Instagram post of you kayaking. Bonus points if you tag them with "Learn from the best." Let that sink in while you casually sip your tea. Now for the grand finale, Tactic 6, the reverse parent. This is where you flip the script so beautifully they don't even see it coming. When your daughter lectures you about screen time, sigh and say, "You're right, I should be more present. In fact, let's make a pact. I'll put my phone away during dinner if you do too." Cue the awkward silence as she realizes her own phone is glued to her hand. Or when your son complains you're stubborn about accepting help, hit him with, "Funny, your kindergarten teacher said the same thing about you. Remember how you refused help tying your shoes for 6 months?" The goal isn't to shame them, but to gently mirror their behavior so they recognize how it feels. A woman in my book club, Rita, used this when her son kept forgetting to invite her to family events, claiming she wouldn't enjoy the noise. She started forgetting to include him in her weekly golf outings with friends. After missing 3 rounds of her famous Bloody Marys, he got the message and suddenly remembered how much his kids loved Grandma's pancakes. The beauty of this approach? It delivers the lesson with a wink, not a lecture, preserving the relationship while firmly redrawing the lines. So there you have it, 6 battle-tested tactics to reclaim your independence without burning bridges or resorting to passive-aggressive sticky notes on the fridge. Though, let's be honest, those can be satisfying too. But before you go practice your best "thanks, but I've got this" look in the mirror, let's talk about what happens when these strategies actually work. Take my neighbor Francine, who used the reverse parent move when her daughter kept insisting she move to a senior living community. After months of gentle pushback, Francine finally said, "You're right. I should consider my options. In fact, let's tour some places together right after we visit those assisted living facilities for you. You know, for future planning." The subject hasn't come up since. Or there's George, who leaned into the controlled burn by casually leaving his perfectly organized travel binder on the kitchen table before his Mediterranean cruise, complete with translated phrases, emergency contacts, and a detailed itinerary that put his son's last vacation to shame. Now, when George mentions his trips, his family just asks what souvenirs he's bringing back. The truth is, setting boundaries isn't about pushing your kids away. It's about reminding everyone, yourself included, that you're still the capable, interesting person who raised them. And here's the beautiful part. When you consistently apply these tactics, something magical happens. They start seeing you as you again, not just as mom or dad who needs looking after, but as the person who taught them to ride a bike, helped them through their first heartbreak, and still knows a thing or two about navigating life. One of my favorite success stories comes from a woman at the senior center who mastered the strategic redirect. Every time her son started hovering, she'd ask for his help researching something she knew he'd geek out over, like the best noise-canceling headphones or how to grow heirloom tomatoes. Now he sends her articles instead of warnings, and she gets to say, "Oh, honey, I actually tried that last week," with just the right amount of sweet satisfaction. If you've enjoyed these strategies, do me a favor, hit that like button so YouTube knows to suggest more videos like this to fellow independent spirits. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Our community of savvy seniors is growing every day, and next week we're tackling how to handle those helpful financial advice sessions that always seem to end with a mod. And really, you should just let me co-sign on your accounts. Spoiler, the answer is nice try, kiddo. Leave a comment below telling me which tactic you're excited to try, or better yet, share your own clever comebacks. After all, we're in this together. And remember, age might change some things, but it doesn't change who you are. Someone who's earned the right to enjoy this chapter on your own terms. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a ladder to climb and some gutters to clean. Just don't tell my kids.